Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of What is Anthropology? If you remember from last time, and I hope you do, anthropology just means the study of humanity. And in studying humans, we try to be comprehensive, understanding all aspects of humanity from our language and culture to our psychology and our biology. We also strive to be comparative, comparing these aspects within and between humans, and also comparing humans to other closely related species. And we try to be synthetic in our understanding of our comprehensive comparative view of humans. How do we synthesize all of these perspectives and have some overarching understandings of humanity? Now, one way to do this is through an evolutionary perspective, and not everyone agrees with that. We will be discussing an evolutionary perspective and some responses to that perspective. And a motto for the field of anthropology might be, "Nothing human is alien to anthropologists, not even our beliefs about aliens." So a particular challenge is, as I mentioned, this understanding humans with a synthetic viewpoint, incorporating studies of art, language, psychology, economics, religion and spiritual behavior, what we call culture, and of course biology and physiology as well. And we divide up the study of humans into the study of modern day humans, current societies and living peoples. This is a Maasai warrior from Kenya. Languages. This is a language map of the continent of Australia, and each color represents a different language as they existed prior to colonization by Europeans. And there are some areas along the coast where you can walk just a few miles down the beach and meet someone who speaks a mutually unintelligible language. So language and linguistic diversity can be quite powerful. And finally, modern day human biology, how the body reacts to stimuli, cultural and environmental, how we age, what aspects of human physiology are flexible, and lots of interesting questions about human biology. We also study past societies and human prehistory, so what happened before we invented writing, essentially, and a lot of this is done through archaeology, excavating the remains of past human behavior and looking at traces of past human behavior and trying to figure out what their lifestyles might have been like. And also biology in the past. This is Ötzi the Iceman. He is 5,300 years old, and he was found by tourists in the Italian Alps just a few years ago. And we can understand a lot about what his lifestyle was like by looking at his hair. We know that he was involved with copper smelting due to residues in his hair. We can look at his teeth and look at the history of sickness in his childhood. We can look at his fingernails and look how often he was sick more recently. We know from the stomach of the contents of his stomach that he was eating something like fruit, yet also there was a lot of pollen. So it was spring, and fruit matures mostly in late summer and fall, so we know that he was involved with preserving food. So we can tell a lot about past human behavior from its traces in human biology as well. And finally, we include the study of our closest ancestors and our closest relatives. Primatologists in a lot of other countries are included in biology departments, and that's what you might expect. But in the United States, primatologists are often in anthropology departments because we strive for that comparative perspective, comparing ourselves to our closest relatives in the mammalian family tree. We also include the study of hominins and those bipedal apes who came before us and led to our being present today. So we include the study of paleoanthropology as well. Traditionally, there hasn't been a lot of talk between these subfields, and we divide up anthropology into 4 different subfields. We have linguistic anthropologists, interested in the study of human languages and the special challenges and methodologies of doing so. We have cultural anthropologists, those who are interested in modern human behavior. Archaeologists and biological anthropologists, those interested in the biology and physiology of humans. And for example, archaeologists and linguistic anthropologists haven't had much to say, so there's been overall little synthesis between the 4 subfields. Our class would probably be included in the biological anthropology subfield, since we're using an evolutionary and more particularly a scientific perspective. But we're going, as I've said, we're going to be using all of these information from all of these subfields. So our class is really about the intersections that we're seeing increasingly in anthropology. We're seeing the use of behavioral ecology, studying how behavior responds to local environments. We're using evolutionary theory from Darwin, especially as it relates to social behavior. So how do we understand social behavior from evolutionary theory? And finally, in this class, we're also including sociocultural anthropology, the behavior of modern day living humans, and we're just interested in incorporating these other aspects into our understanding of that. So we're using animal behavior, theories of animal behavior in context. We're using evolutionary theory of cooperation, how individuals have to get along with one another in social contexts. And we're going to be studying modern day human behavioral diversity. And a better way to describe this, since there's so little area of overlap in the middle of that Venn diagram, would be to look at it this way. We're studying human evolution, and we're going to be looking at evolution of human behavior using Darwinian social theory. We're most particularly interested in human behavior, and we'll use behavioral ecology to understand this. And finally, we want to understand human social behavior, so we'll be using theories and information from sociocultural anthropology. And to kind of give you an overarching view of how we think about all of these things, we can use a quote from an evolutionary biologist, Theodosius Dobzhansky. Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. So while we're studying human social behavior, we're using behavioral ecological perspectives, we're trying to use evolutionary theory as an overall synthetic approach to looking at the similarities and differences in human behavior. Now this begs the question, how tightly integrated should the study of human social life and evolutionary biology be? And at this point, my hope in the lecture is that you're asking yourself, why is this even a question? But this is the central issue in anthropology today, and it has generated a lot of contention between anthropologists, everything from fistfights to dumping coolers of ice water on people in the middle of lectures. It's been an interesting ride for the last several decades and generation or so. Because some people believe that human social life shouldn't be studied from the perspective of evolutionary biology, and this is of course one answer to that question. Not at all. We should not try to understand human behavior with an evolutionary perspective. And of course, on the opposite end of the spectrum is very tightly. We should be, of course, trying to use this perspective. Those who answer not at all consider themselves generally in the camp of humanistic postmodernism. And if that sounds like a bunch of gibberish, please forgive yourself. It's a lot of polysyllabic words, and I've summed it up with another polysyllabic word, incommensurability. Humanistic postmodernists believe that every culture is unique, and every human within every culture is unique. And therefore it's very difficult to understand one culture from the perspective of another, or even one person from the perspective of another. And in fact, they are incommensurate perspectives, trying to understand what life would be like as a Maasai from the perspective of what life is like as someone living in Boise, Idaho. It's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to truly understand something like differences in kinship system, what it means to be a member of one culture or another. And this includes the culture of science. So from the humanistic postmodernism perspective, science is just another culture. And so it's very difficult to understand something like kinship systems in the Maasai, for example, from a scientific perspective because they are incommensurate. Those who answer that human social life should be very tightly linked to evolutionary biology fall into the evolutionary science camp. And to sum up their perspective with one word, we would use the word consilience. Consilience means that we may use multiple perspectives, but they all interlock somehow. So if you think of the study of the hormone testosterone, you can think of studying testosterone as part of a biological system. You can think about studying it as a chemical, and you can think about studying its physical properties. So physics, chemistry, and biology are all consilient when you're studying the hormone testosterone. They all have separate perspectives, but to some extent they interlock with one another and create a greater whole of understanding. And so evolutionary science might help increase this greater whole of understanding human social behavior by incorporating one more perspective and having this consilient aspect. So we'll have different explanations. Evolutionary science is an overarching one. And as you can see if you've gone to our anthropology department website here at Boise State, that we are very much in the second camp. And we consider ourselves to be a growing research-oriented faculty with a thematic focus on human evolution and ecology, and that we are committed to applying the scientific method to understanding the behavior, ecology, social relations, and sustained resource use of our species. So we very much think that evolution and evolutionary theory might be one way to synthesize our understanding of humans, and that we should incorporate this very, very tightly in our understanding of human social behavior. So if we were to adapt that quote by Dobzhansky, a motto for our class might be that nothing in anthropology makes scientific sense without the light of evolutionary theory. So we definitely take a scientific perspective, and science is a method, as we'll be discussing in one of the upcoming lectures. And we think that using evolutionary theory is key. And again, one of the upcoming lectures is what is evolution? So I hope you go ahead and take a look at that in a few days, and I'll see you back then. Thanks for listening.